Nightfall was not just an external darkness, but also a stifling silence in his soul. Amid the whistling wind through the window, the man stood, his eyes filled with confusion. He wondered if he would ever escape the ghost of guilt haunting him. The distant church bells rang, but they couldn't reach his heart. A fierce inner battle began. How could simple prayers change fate? If I forgive the one who hurt me, does that make me weak? He questioned himself. The man looked at the old Bible on the table, his trembling hand opening to a page faded with time. Love your enemies. An invitation to forgive, but also a great challenge. His heart felt heavy as stone. Was forgiveness truly the right path? He remembered the face of the one who hurt him. Hatred smoldered like a slow fire, yet it weighed heavily on his soul. Is it worth it? The question echoed in his mind, leaving him torn between forgiveness and hatred. What would you do? A voice echoed from within. The question pierced the silence, as if directly challenging you. If you were him, would you forgive? Would you have the courage to choose love over hate? Now the answer is not just for him, but for you. The darkness is not the scariest thing. The terrifying part is when people choose it, not knowing they have the power to choose the light. Can you feel the cold seeping into your soul? The devil doesn't appear in a frightening form as we imagine. It could be doubt, selfishness, or hopelessness. Have you ever faced it in your own heart? The devil's strength lies not in destruction, but in persuading people to destroy themselves. Do you think we are cutting ourselves off from something precious? Some battles are not between good and evil, but between truth and lies. What is your truth? Can you face it when it challenges everything you've ever believed? Sometimes the most terrifying thing is not the presence of evil, but the silence in the face of it. Have you ever wondered why we remain silent when confronted with injustice? We are born with a light in our souls. But each wrong decision, each surrender to temptation, adds a stain that dims that light. Can you still see your light? There is always a struggle within each person. Are we fighting the devil, or are we battling our own fears? Have you ever asked yourself what makes you hesitate when facing the truth? Temptation doesn't arrive like a great storm, but often as a gentle breeze. Yet, it is this breeze that leads us astray little by little. Can you feel it? The small changes, where are they taking you? When we turn away from the light, darkness fills the space, not loudly but silently. Are you giving up something and you haven't even realized it? The devil wants to make us believe we are small and weak. But you have been given strength. Will you dare to use it, or will you continue to doubt yourself? We often believe doing the right thing is easy. But when faced with temptation, the right choice becomes blurry. Have you ever been lost between your options? The devil doesn't need you to fail completely. He just needs you to give up hope. Have you ever wanted to give up in moments of weakness? This world is filled with many voices, but are we listening to the right one? Can you distinguish the voice of truth among thousands of lies? In life, we don't always fight to win. Sometimes, simply holding on to faith is a victory. Are you holding on to your faith? The most dangerous enemy is not the devil outside, but the darkness within each soul. Are you ready to face it? To confront yourself? We all stand at a crossroads. To continue fighting or accept defeat. What will you choose? This is not just a question. It is a decision for your entire life. The dark room was lit only by a faint glow from outside the window, casting a chilling cold. His heart raced, breath quickened, but deep down he knew, if I submit, I will never be alone. The young man's steps echoed slowly across the wooden floor, each sound resonating like the call of his past, of the times he had fallen. But this time, he would not retreat. The devil has no power over those who belong to God, he murmured, gripping the open Bible tightly. His strength didn't come from his body, but from his unwavering faith in God. Outside, the wind swept away the fallen yellow leaves like lost souls. Yet amid the storm, a small flame continued to burn, his faith bright and steadfast, his eyes fixed on the shadow before him. It wasn't just a vague figure, but fear embodied into reality. "I am not afraid, for I have chosen to stand in the light." A whisper emerged from the corner of the room, but instead of making him tremble, it was a reminder: resist the devil, and he will flee. He stood firm, unshaken. "My perseverance is my shield," he whispered, closing his eyes as prayers echoed in his mind, each word like chains binding the darkness, weakening it with every second. The heavy weight suddenly lifted, as if an invisible wall had risen, protecting him from all evil. "It is not my strength, but the strength of the one who made me." The devil's heavy footsteps faded, like a beast pushed back. Confidence surged in his heart, like a flame that would never die. He knew this was just the beginning of the battle, but fear no longer controlled him. "God has given me the strength to overcome fear." There is no retreat, only forward. Each word he spoke rang like a bell, signaling victory ahead. Suddenly, the room was flooded with light, streaming in through the window like a sign of divine presence. He felt a peace beyond words. "If I stand firm, if I remain steadfast, nothing can defeat my faith." His voice was filled with determination, his heart now free of fear. The darkness retreated, though it didn't disappear entirely. It lingered, waiting. But he now knew, submission is not weakness. It is how we face evil. The choice is in each of our hands. Defeating the devil is not just an external victory, but an inner battle. His emotions overflowed, and everything became clearer than ever. He looked at the invisible audience as if facing those who were also struggling in the darkness of their lives. Will you choose to stand up or let fear control your life? Remember, no path is easy. But when we choose the light, we will never walk alone. A call, a challenge, and the choice is yours. In moments of loneliness, your mind seems to sink into chaos. That's when the darkness quietly creeps in, shaking the very roots of your spirit. You can feel the heaviness in your heart. It's not just the pressures of life, but the temptations of the lurking shadows, always waiting to lead you astray. Everything seems blurry. The prayers that once brought comfort now feel empty, as if you're knocking on a door to nothingness with no one to hear, no one to answer. Have you ever wondered why peace seems to leave you? Why do the good habits suddenly feel burdensome? That's when the devil has set a trap in your heart. He whispers sweet words in your ear, saying that neglect is just part of being human. But don't let that ambiguity lull your soul to sleep. Every time you give up on prayer, you lay another brick in the wall separating you from God. He smiles every time you forget the value of prayer. Darkness doesn't attack with fierce waves. It approaches calmly, silently, slowly dimming the flame of faith like a candle flickering out in a gentle breeze. An emptiness rises in your heart. You search for meaning but can't find it. That is the sign of an invasion from the enemy, trying to steal your faith. You stand at a crossroads. One path leads to the light of faith, the other to the darkness of distraction. Which will you choose when both seem unclear? Everything seems to collapse, and you wonder if anyone is fighting alongside you. That loneliness is not just a feeling, but a spiritual test you must face. The enemy doesn't have to do much. He just needs to make you doubt the existence of light. A little doubt, and your entire faith could crumble like a castle in the sand. Remember, prayer is not a natural act for humans. It is a spiritual battle. Every prayer is an arrow against the darkness, even if you don't see the result immediately. Don't let God's silence lead you astray. Because in that silence, you will learn to listen to your heart, and the strength of faith will gradually be restored. He knows how to make you believe everything is lost. But what he doesn't know is that the power of faith always surpasses temptation, always stronger than any darkness. Will you let yourself be defeated or rise up, fighting with unwavering faith, resisting the silent invasion of the devil? Choose now. Are you ready to return to prayer, to God, and keep the flame of faith in your heart? Or will you let the darkness continue to invade your spiritual life? You can answer. Between the whistling winds, the warrior's soul felt torn apart. Could the temptation of material things cloud the light of his spirit, Or would he find peace in his faith? In a moment of uncertainty, he sensed two paths before him. One was bright but filled with lies, the other dark but overflowing with truth. He wondered, would he dare step into the darkness to find salvation? Darkness doesn't only come from outside, but also creeps into the soul. Sometimes our own desires are the most dangerous prison, but who has the courage to free themselves? His soul yearned for peace, but his flesh demanded instant gratification. Would he trade eternal peace for fleeting moments of earthly pleasure? Amid the storm of life, he heard the soft yet authoritative whisper of the Holy Spirit. Choose life, it told him. But did he have the faith to follow? His eyes looked to the heavens, seeking a sign, a direction. But did he realize that the answer had always been deep within him, waiting for him to awaken? The devil doesn't appear with a ferocious face, but often in the form of things we crave. And it is those desires that will lead us away from the righteous path. Will he see this before it's too late? The choice between material and spiritual is never simple. But what truly has lasting value? He wondered if his life was just an endless race to hold on to things that will vanish. The gate to peace is always open, but it demands a sacrifice greater than anything he has ever known. That sacrifice doesn't come from outside, but from within. Is he ready to give up those desires? Temptation always invites, promises much, but never truly satisfies. He had gone too far to turn back, but was there a path home that he hadn't yet seen? Each step he took was filled with hesitation. His heart felt heavy, but somewhere a flicker of light shone. He knew that every decision he made would affect not just his fate, but also those around him. The value of a soul can never be measured by money or material wealth. He could recognize this, but did he have the courage to act on that awareness? In a life filled with competition, does anyone still remember the importance of the soul and mind? Or are we chasing things outside, forgetting ourselves? If one day everything you pursued suddenly vanished, would you regret it? Or would you feel relief from being freed from the prison of worldly desires? The hardest path is not overcoming external obstacles, but facing oneself. Is he ready to confront what lies hidden deep within? So, what will you choose? The temporary satisfaction of the body or the eternal peace of the soul? This decision is not just for him, but for you. Which path will you take? The faint light spread across the room. The 7 sons of Sceva stood there, confident but also uneasy, thinking they could cast out dark forces without true submission to the real power. A raspy voice emerged from the darkness, shaking the room. We know Jesus, and we know Paul, but who are you? The question echoed, awakening their deepest fear. Without submission, the sons of Sceva were just weak humans standing before the power of darkness. Their eyes filled with panic as they realized the truth. The shadows around them seemed to grow thicker, no longer just harmless shapes, but as if the presence of sin and pride were slowly consuming them. Do you think power comes from words and rituals? The voice from the darkness now became fierce, authoritative. A cold wind swept through, signaling that something terrifying was about to happen. The bodies of the 7 began to tremble. They couldn't hide their fear, the truth that without submission to God, they were utterly powerless against evil forces. The darkness in the room flared up like a fire of vengeance. The 7 sons of Sceva started screaming, fleeing in terror, their confidence completely shattered. Their hurried footsteps echoed, but they could not escape. Their hearts weighed down with the painful realization. Only true submission to God is the key to protection. In their despair, one of them looked up to the heavens, his eyes filled with tears. Why did we forget the most important thing? Our pride has blinded us. The sounds from the darkness gradually quieted, as if the evil forces had found their answer. It is submission. That alone is the true strength. Life is not just about action, but about the choice of obedience, a core decision that awakens the conscience. They realized that without submission, everything they did was in vain. The wind blew through, shaking everything. But now it carried a clear message. The only path to true strength is through submission to God. In that moment of silence, they stopped running. They knew that there was only one way to face the forces of darkness, by following God's will. Have you made your choice? A voice echoed, but this time it wasn't from the darkness, it came from within themselves. It was the moral question each of us must face. Will we obey or continue to flee? Evil forces cannot overcome those who submit. The power of submission lies not in actions, but in the determination and deep loyalty to God. Now, the question is asked of us, which path will you choose? Will you obey or continue testing yourself in the darkness of pride? Let your choice be known. In the shadows of temptation, there is one forgotten truth. The power of God surpasses all evil. We are the chosen ones, never alone in this battle. James 4:7 is the sword that demons don't want you to have. When you submit to God, no shadow can cling to you. Resist it. This is not just a call, but the hidden strength within you, the strength of resolve and faith. Have you ever wondered why demons fear submission? Simply because they know submission is the only weapon that makes them flee. In your weakest moments, remember that submission is not a sign of surrender, but the beginning of divine strength. You are never fighting alone. When you submit to God, He stands beside you. His power is greater than any darkness. Life may feel like an endless battlefield, but with God, every battle has a reason and a higher purpose. The devil wants you to think you are not strong enough to resist him. But the truth is, you have a power greater than his if you choose to stand with God. Imagine this, the light of submission piercing through the shadow of temptation. The devil cannot bear that brightness. We often feel tempted to give up when faced with trials. But do you know that these moments are opportunities for our submission to shine the brightest? Submission is not fear. It is your way of affirming that you believe in something higher, that evil can never prevail. The devil doesn't just fear you when you are strong. He fears you even when you are weak, as long as your faith is unshakable. God is always there, waiting for you to realize that His power is limitless. Submission to Him is the key to opening the door to freedom. You may feel helpless, but know that with God, no enemy is too great to face. The question isn't whether you can defeat the devil, but whether you will submit enough to make him flee. Now, I ask you, if you knew that submission could change your destiny, would you have the courage to submit? In the quiet of the night, when everything grows still, anxiety crashes over you like a stormy wave. Fear rises in your heart, but there is a quiet presence, always silently protecting you. Walking in darkness is not just a physical challenge, but a battle within. A fight between faith and fear, between hope and despair. There are moments when it feels like you're standing on the edge, just one small step from falling. But then, you feel an invisible hand gently lift you away from the abyss. Your soul longs for peace, and Psalm 3 whispers like a voice from God, "I am here with you amidst the storms." You are never alone. You recall times when you felt powerless, when chaos overtook your mind. It was then you found comfort in deep prayers, like a light in the night. The heavy burden of the world seems to vanish, replaced by an invisible, powerful shield surrounding you, like a spiritual armor guarding you against unseen attacks. Prayers are not just words, but the cries of the heart, sent to the Almighty with absolute trust. That trust becomes your strength to resist all temptation. Threats may come from the outside, but the greatest fear always lies within the human soul. Yet, when you know that God is with you, that fear begins to fade. You are my shield. These words are not just a psalm, but a truth that has protected you, whether you recognized it or not. In your weakest moments, you realize that faith is not easy, but it is the only thing that can pull you from the abyss of despair. Those around you may not understand, but God does. He knows your pain, knows the trials you face, and is always ready to lift you through every hardship. Your shield is not of material, but of spirit. It is forged from faith and love, a shield that never fades, despite any trial. Sometimes you feel weary and want to give up, but God's presence is like a guiding light, helping you see the path ahead, no matter how faint it may appear. Ask yourself, If everything collapsed, what would you rely on? And when nothing is left but faith, which path will you take? In the end, the choice is always yours. Will you let fear control you? Or will you stand up and trust in that invisible shield to move forward? Do you have the courage to share this story, to let others feel the protective power as you do? The wind howled through the trees, and darkness enveloped the land. He stood at the edge of right and wrong, his heart weighed down like a heavy stone. Will I dare step forward? Or will I remain trapped in fear and regret? In her eyes was not only pain, but also an inner conflict. The faint light of the candle reflected on her face, highlighting the tension within. If I don't do this, am I betraying my own conscience? But if I do, what will be left? Your eyes follow them, but this story is also yours. What choice will you make if you were in their place? Leave your comments below. We want to hear your thoughts on this choice. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button and share it so others can also learn about the power of God's Word. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss upcoming videos that help you in your spiritual battles. May God bless you.